Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Pocket Pediatrics. I am Dr. Sumitra and today we will discuss a very important emergency, diabetic ketoacidosis. So today I'll cover the definition of diabetic ketoacidosis, how can we know the severity of decay, the criteria for severity of decay, risk factors, and what are the precipitating factors, what are the clinical features of decay, and then laboratory investigations, and I'll cover the algorithm for management of diabetic ketoacidosis, and in the last I'll tell the how to calculate insulin and food in case of diabetic ketoacidosis. Okay, so let's start. So, coming to definition of diabetic ketoacidosis, all of three criteria should be present: hyperglycemia, metabolic acidosis, and ketosis. Okay, so in hyperglycemia, blood glucose level should be more than 200 milligram per deciliter. The pH should be less than 7.3, or bicarbonate should be less than 15 milliequivalent per liter, and there should be presence of ketone bodies in the blood or urine. So usually blood ketones assessment of blood ketones is not available in laboratory, so we do only urinary ketone. So now coming to how to assess the severity of diabetic ketoacidosis. So decay is categorized into mild, moderate, and severe decay on the basis of pH and sodium bicarbonate level. So in mild decay, patient will have pH of 7.2 to 7.3 and sodium bicarbonate between 10 to 15. In moderate decay, pH will be 7.1 to 7.2 and the sodium bicarbonate will be between the 5 to 9. And in severe decay, the pH will be less than 7.1 and sodium bicarbonate will be less than 5. So there is another entity just like decay, which is called hyperglycemic hyperosmolar state. But there is slight difference between decay and hyperglycemic hyperosmolar state. So these are the criteria for diagnosis of HHS. There will be marked hyperglycemia, like more than 600 milligram per deciliter, but the acidosis will be minimum. The venous pH usually more than 7.25 or arterial pH more than 7.3, and usually the sodium bicarbonate will be more than 15 millimole per liter. Usually the ketosis is absent, but mild ketosis may be present, and there will be the marked elevation in the serum osmolarity. Effective osmolarity will be more than 320 milliosmol per kg. So what are the risk factors? So risk factors I have divided into new patient and previously diagnosed decay patient. So in new patient, risk factors are young age, less than 5 years of age, especially less than 2 years of age, low socioeconomic status or lack of health insurance. Third, ethnic minority. Fourth, delayed diagnosis of diabetes, including reduced access to medical care. And fifth, children living in the countries with the low prevalence of type 1 diabetes. So coming to what are the risk factors in kids who are already diagnosed with the diabetes. So first is the children with the poor metabolic control, higher HbA1c values, and higher reported insulin requirements. Second is gastroenteritis with the vomiting and dehydration, some kind of infection. Third is peripubertal or pubertal adolescent girls. Fourth is children with a history of psychiatric disorders, so an eating disorder or unstable family circumstances. So what happened in these kind of situation? The children usually do not take insulin at time, and they will have poor metabolic glycemic control. Fifth will be the children with the limited access to the medical care, and sixth will be inadvertent or intentional omission of insulin, including failure of insulin pump. So what are the precipitating factors? So first and the most common precipitating factor is poor metabolic control or missed insulin dose. Second is illness, any kind of illness, fever, some kind of mild viral illness, gastroenteritis. Third is medications, like if child is has to take corticosteroids or is on atypical antipsychotics, tacrolimus, L-aspergillus or digoxide. Fourth is drugs or alcohol, usually in adolescent. So what are the clinical feature of diabetic ketoacidosis? So the most common clinical feature uh, which so the most common clinical feature children present with are vomiting, abdominal pain, polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, weight loss, fast breathing. And so these are the most common clinical feature. But apart from these, there will be a loss of appetite, or there is a history of infection, viral infection, cough, and it is etc. Okay. So on examination, what are the clinical signs you can see in diabetic decay kids? Child will be lethargic, child will be dehydrated, signs, there will be signs of poor perfusion, tachycardia, tachypnea. Okay, so now coming to laboratory investigations. So these are the basic laboratory investigations you have to order in every children who you are suspected as DKA: blood glucose level, venous blood gas, to look for pH and bicarbonate, and also for CO2, because these children will have hyper ventilation, so there will be CO2 washout. And third, urinary ketones or blood ketones if available, serum electrolyte to see potassium, sodium, blood ketones if available, blood urea nitrogen, serum creatinine to know the status of kidney, calcium, phosphate, HbA1c for the poor glycemic control, and C peptide. So this is the flow chart you are looking at. This is the kind of summary. If child present with the decay, how will you manage? So first, when child comes to you, you just assess the child for the dehydration or shock, and you manage first ABCD. And after that, you are by managing meanwhile managing the ABCD, you will ask about a brief history. If he or she is already diagnosed with the DK diabetes, or is he or she is a new case. So in clinical history, if she is a new case, he is a new case, then you can ask history about polyuria, polydipsia, weight loss, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, the typical history of diabetes. Okay, and you look for signs of dehydration, shock, poor perfusion, cuspal breathing, that is like very sigh, deep breathing. Okay, smell of ketones, lethargy, drowsiness, or any neurological signs. And then if you are sure that this is a case of diabetic ketoacidosis, then by putting a cannula and send the basic investigation, blood glucose. So by the time it will take like 10 to 15 minutes to come blood glucose and VBG report. You can do blood glucose by glucose strip and the ketone by urinary ketone strip. So you can you will get an idea that this is a case of DK. And when you have report of pH, then you can document that this is a case of diabetic ketoacidosis. So now you have confirmed the case of diabetic ketoacidosis. So you have to assess for shock. If child is in shock, then you have to give resuscitation fluid, start oxygen, and in resuscitation fluid you have to give normal saline at the rate of 10 to 20 ml per kg over 1 to 2 hours, and then repeat until the circulation restored. But here you have to look for cerebral edema, because these kids, if we correct the fluid volume deficit fast, then these kids are very prone to go into cerebral edema. So you have to look for signs of cerebral edema. I'll cover this topic in separate class. So after that correction of shock, if child is not in shock or after correction of shock, you have to start IV therapy. So in IV therapy, if child is not in shock, then you have to start normal saline at 10 ml per kg over 1 hour. This is for volume expansion. Before starting insulin therapy, always give this fluid over 1 hour. Okay, so then calculate the fluid deficit for next 24 to 48 hours. I'll tell in next slide how to calculate, and if ECG available for the potassium level. And because we have to add potassium after we are sure that child is not child does not have hyperkalemia or hypokalemia. Okay, if child is having minimal dehydration and tolerating oral fluid, then you can start only subcutaneous insulin and continue oral hydration. So if you see no improvement in next 4 to 6 hours, then you can start IV therapy. So after the initial fluid resuscitation, we have to start insulin infusion at the rate of 0.05 to 0.1 unit per kg per hour. How to calculate it, I'll tell in next slide. So after starting insulin, this is the very important point to monitor the patient, because if you don't monitor, the blood glucose will be like level, you have to monitor the pH, you have to monitor the neurological status, you have to monitor. If you don't monitor it very closely, then child can go to cerebral edema, and the improvement will be slow and it will harm child. So you have to monitor blood glucose level, intake output level, neurological status every 1 hourly, and the electrolyte every 2 hourly after starting IV therapy. If acidosis is not improving, let's say ki you have started insulin but the fall you have expected of blood glucose and improving the pH, it is not there, then you have to re-evaluate your own diagnosis. So it can be sepsis induced hyperglycemia, or there can be problem in IV fluid calculation, or there can be problem in insulin delivery system. So sometimes it happen that we don't flush the insulin or we don't prime the insulin the line, so it will take time to deliver the insulin, or it will absorb in line. So we have to prime the insulin line if there is a you are not getting the fall of blood glucose or improvement of pH as you expected. And in second scenario, the blood glucose level is improving and it is below 300 milligram per deciliter, and the pH is also improving. Okay, so then you have to add the blood glucose dextrose. So initially you can add 5% dextrose, then as the fall going on, then you can increase to 10%, 12.5%, and then if child has improved, the pH has improved, and the child is tolerating oral food, then you can switch the subcutaneous insulin infusion to subcutaneous insulin. And if you see any neurological deterioration, then you have to go the management of cerebral edema. I'll tell in next class. Okay. So now coming to how to calculate the fluid in diabetic ketoacidosis. So first you have to weigh the baby. Let's say that the weight of baby is 10 kg. Then second step is assess the percentage of dehydration. Let's say it's 5% dehydration. And then assume the child is not in shock. If child is in shock, then the management is different. We have to detect the fluid we have given for resuscitation. Okay, so let's see, we have given 10 ml per kg without so first the resuscitation fluid you have to give without KCl. So for 1 hour, so like calculating, I am telling you how to calculate fluid for 48 hours. You can calculate for 24 hours also. So dehydration fluid will be 50, as we have assumed that dehydration is 5%, then 50 into 10 weight into 2, 24 into 2. So it will be 1000 ml. The maintenance fluid be 100 into 10 into 2, 200 ml. The total fluid will be 300 ml. So if I have told you that we have to subtract this fluid. So the fluid in first hour was given at 10 ml, that is 100 ml. So total fluid in 48 hours we have to give is 2900 ml. The fluid per hour will be 60.4 ml, and the fluid composition initially we use n by 2 0.45% normal saline. Later we add dextrose according to blood sugar level. Okay, now how to calculate insulin? So insulin we give 0.05 unit to 0.1 unit per kg per hour. Usually the hospital supplied vial contains 1 ml contains 40 unit of insulin. So if we take 1 vial insulin and 30 ml NS, total will be 40 ml fluid. The concentration will be 1 ml 1 unit. For example, if weight of baby is 10 kg, insulin will be 12 unit for 24 hours. The rate will be 0.05 unit per kg per hour. So the insulin infusion pump rate will be 0.5 ml per hour. Okay. So now coming to few more slides on potassium, electrolyte and dextrose. So potassium, if documented hypokalemia, start potassium with a volume expansion. If not, then give potassium free fluid in expansion fluid. If ECG documentation is not if documentation of potassium is taking time, then you can do ECG. If no abnormality, you can start potassium replacement fluid at 40 millimole per liter. In case of severe hypokalemia, you can reduce the insulin dose. And usually is the combination of potassium and potassium acetate and potassium chloride combination is recommended. So how can you monitor the dextrose fall? So initially the fall will be steep. So the dextrose fall during insulin infusion should not be more than 5 millimole or 88 mg per liter. If the fall is more than that, we have to evaluate for insulin infusion, and add 5% dextrose once blood sugar level reach between 250 to 300. And if the fall is more than 88 milligram per liter, then we have to add dextrose even if dextrose is higher than more than 300. Okay, so what are the goals of therapy? To correct acidosis and reverse ketosis, pH more than 7.3, bicarb more than 15, or blood urinary ketone more than 1 millimole per liter. Correct dehydration, restore blood glucose to near normal, monitor the complications of decay and its treatment, identify and treat any precipitating event. So final slide is of complication. What are the complication of decay? That can be cerebral edema due to if we give excessive fluid, and or we correct the dehydration rapidly. Second, it can cause insulin drip can cause hypokalemia, or it can cause hyperchloremic acidosis. The blood glucose level can fall very rapidly and can cause hypoglycemia and inadequate rehydration. So these are the complications. So in next class, I'll take how to manage cerebral edema in case of decay. And that's all for today. Have a nice day.